Ladies
Okay.
and gentlemen, we're live with CF Jingara on site at the fires in the bush. Isn't that true, CF?
Yeah, mate. It's pretty bad here at the moment. As you can see, we've got a huge amount of smoke coming across the property at the moment, and it's been continuous like this for nearly 3 weeks now. I've now got a fire on my sister's property, which is about 100 kilometres north of here. And fortunately, I believe the fire brigades have protected the small weekender property that we've got there. But much of the southeast of Australia is actually tremendously on fire at the moment from the cyclical drought that we're in. Now, the main thing to remember about drought here in Australia is that everybody wants to point the finger at climate change and actually all want to say, oh, it's CO2, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. Bullshit. Keep going back. Keep going into history. Keep looking at all of the components that have been catalogued throughout the news history of this country, and you'll find that all of the events that occur around fire and all of the events that occur around drought are largely aligned with either solar minimum periods or drought. Full stop. It's not something that's increased. You know, there are many bits of information in news that have been put across either international news or local news, where it has actually stated quite clearly that there is huge temperatures in the 115, 120 degrees that have occurred across much of Australia and the southeast. So yeah, it's pretty bad, mate. It's
well, here's what I found out today. Giles, is that I watched a program from Tony Heller, and he went back into the bomb database back to 1909, and he found that there was heat waves between 1930 and 1909 where it averaged above 124 degrees in New South Wales for over 10 days, multiple times. Nothing compared to anything that they're claiming these days. And so they don't want to tell you about that.
Correct.
And plus, the bushfires, almost all of Central Australia was on fire. I mean, it was bad back then.
Yep, not only that, Don, but also when you look at some of the history of the state of Victoria, which is south of here, 2/3 of the entire state burnt in the 1800s. So there's that bit of news that everybody seems to forget, is that this country has a huge cycle of burn, rebuild, floods, burn, rebuild, floods. And if you are prepared for it, you can live with it. And that's the reason why, you know, I've got huge swaths of land around my property here where I've pushed leaf and bark away from the house. I've got mineral earth all around the property at the moment. It's all set up to protect the fire. I've stored extra water. I've got my green zone. And, you know, unfortunately, there aren't many landholders out here in the bush outside of the major cities that actually want to put in the effort, and they don't. And they're the ones who actually turn out to be the biggest whingers.
Explain to me a couple things. What's the temperature right there where you are now, first? How hot is it?
It's about 36 degrees Celsius at the moment, so it's high 90s. It's going to be high 90s and early 100s probably here tomorrow. But tomorrow night it'll actually get really cool because there'll be a big southerly change that pushes through. Now, when that big change pushes through, it's going to put a big issue for the firefighters, because it's going to actually cause the flanks of the fires to become the fronts of the fires as it changes direction. And so many of the fires that are north and northeast of here will actually push right up towards the southern parts of Sydney and into many of the highly populated zones on the southeast corner here of the country.
So breaking news coming out of CF Jingara right now on location. He's telling us that weather pattern shift tomorrow is going to shift the direction of the current wildfires in his region and it's going to push them towards Sydney. Now, what's the risk of the city actually being affected?
Yeah, so the outer suburbs are right up against the bushline. There are parts of southeast Sydney that are really close to the bushland. There are small towns that are all the way surrounding Sydney, and there's there's two fires. So there's one that's really enormous. It's larger than Sydney as an entire city to the northwest of the entire city, and there's one that's to the southwest. And if they join together tomorrow, which is a very high likelihood, if they join together, the entire city will be surrounded by fire, bar one small, 80 to 90 kilometre tract heading down towards the south. So I would hate to be in the city tomorrow in Sydney with all the amount of smoke that will be there. The air pollution will be worse than what they get in Beijing, and it's pretty bad,
Yeah, I'm pretty used
here,
to smoke fire here because I live in the wilderness, so we get it every summer. And this year we only had 2 or 3 bad days where it was bad for breathing, but it's like you're inside of a barbecue. You're not there yet, but I experience worse smoke every year than you have because the fires are typically only 3 or 4 kilometers away. And once we get downwind, it's like go inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, mate, because I spent 6 years as a bush firefighter in my region around here, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I put the effort in to actually help do what I could do for the community around here, and this is actually really intense smoke at the moment. I'm actually starting to get ash falling from the sky here at the moment, so it's interesting.
I thought it was bugs.
There's ash falling. Oh, there's blowflies as well, but there's a bit of ash coming down as well. It's a bit nasty.
Okay, dude, it's been a pleasure. If you guys don't know about CF Jingara, he's on the other side of the planet. He's talking to us live via Skype, and we don't know how because some of the data is being robbed by local firefighters, as they should, as they fight these fires that, according to CF, the weather pattern may shift tomorrow, and then this is going to blow towards Sydney. And CF, can you imagine what the fear mongers in Australia and the U.S. are going to write about how climate change is burning Sydney?
Oh, dude, they're already doing it, and there are so many news agencies that just have lost the plot. They're no longer being responsible with news reporting. They're now lining with an agenda. What it is, I don't know, because it seems to change every day. But everything. Look, I'll tell you flat out. I left the fire brigade in my local region because the Green Party took control of the local fire brigade. There are multiple members of the local fire brigade that took over, and they are all card-carrying members of the Green Party, and they prevented many of the local farmers and landholders from doing strategic and controlled burns on their properties, and that carries through to the media. It's rife here in Australia at the moment. So, what can you do? You just got to prepare yourself. You've just got to do what you can do, and be strong. Real simple. Be prepared.
Well, prayers go out to you, and all of our subscribers and all the viewers are going to send prayers out to you for the next 24 to 48 hours. Is that shift going to bring the fire towards you or away from you?
No, it's going to be away from me, but it's going to take it towards my sister's farm. So my sister's farm is the one that's the concern for me at the moment, in the fact that it's as of last night, the fire was only about half a kilometre from the property. During the day today, it will have shifted towards it. There's an easterly coming towards me at the moment.
Little freeze up on CF's side there, but amazing. We've had 9 minutes of uninterrupted service here, and hopefully we'll get CF back here. Otherwise, there you are.
There you go. So tomorrow there'll be near 3% humidity. So that means that we're going to have super, super, super dry conditions. So any fire can't be controlled. Even the large fire bombers, they can't drop enough water to control the fire. You need 100-meter gaps in your fuel load to be able to contain the fire when there's that much wind and there's that much heat. So I really hope for those people who are prepared. My sister's property will likely get blacked out tomorrow. Luckily, the small weekend that they've got is very well set up and it's very well protected from fire. But the rest of the property, I'm assuming, will be completely black by tomorrow afternoon.
And before we go tonight, I want to thank you for joining us under such extreme conditions. But more importantly, the people out there listening need to know what you know. I mean, you're an expert bush firefighter. I know a little bit about firefighting because of where I live. But the important thing is that these wildfires are needed. They are part of the growing cycle on Earth. They release seeds in certain trees.
Absolutely.
Certain rare plants bloom. And the problem is that we haven't been managing the forest correctly. We have not been allowing them to burn, and this is the result.
100% agree. 100% agree. There are so many facts around that here in Australia we have not managed our bushland very well at all since we colonised the country. And most of the natives that actually ran the countryside here, and I know a lot of them in my local region here, I've talked to a lot of them and they actually know my property very well. They've all stated you need to burn regularly. You need to get your fuel loads down, because that feeds the wildlife. It feeds the carbon into the soil. You're actually building your carbon up by burning your fuel, as long as you burn it quietly. If you burn it, and I've got a couple of videos which I showed earlier in the year where I was doing some very light burns, some very gentle burns during winter, where all of that dark carbon is now part of the soil, and there's no ash involved. It's all, maybe 1/10 of it's ash and the rest of it's all just dark carbon. It's all part of the soil now. It's fantastic. And those areas that I burn every 2 to 3 years, I can see that they progress and they're fantastic. So
this is not new.
Wake up and actually realize that.
Giles, this isn't new news. In fact, if you didn't know, I've done some research on the U.S. and on the West Coast, the native populations here, they're laughing at California, because the native populations prior to 1800 would actually go up into the Sierras and they would light fires on purpose because it increased their berry production. It made the hunting better because it helped grow new grasses, and it was part of their multi-decadal regime. They would literally burn the forest on purpose. When they left, they would light it on fire, and when they came back, it was prolific.
Yep, and I actually burn my berry vines every second year. People don't realise if you actually burn your berries, they actually come back really well. I've got sylvanberries and boysenberries and loganberries, and boysenberries that are just coming out the wazoo this year. I've already picked a kilo in the first week. Burning off pays dividends if you do it right at the right time.
You heard it here first. We have live reporting on the ground in Australia that the weather patterns may shift. Coming from CF Jingara. If you don't know who he is, that's solarminimum.net. He'll have his website up at some point. If not, I'll pay for it, and we'll get that up there. But he's busy with wildfires in the bush. So come over here and subscribe to his channel. Give him some support, because he's got some great videos here. It's not all about black flies and fires, is it?
No, not at all. No. It's there's a fair bit about being prepared and doing the right sort of permaculture, growing food, and understanding how to prepare in the Australian bush, and collecting your water and all that sort of stuff. So, and I'm always very aware about data and analytics with weather. So I'm pretty good at understanding and translating what's coming down the pipeline for here in Australia.
We love you, CF. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming. And guys, if you want to see a great video on proof that the bomb is full of it and that CF knows about the cycles of burning, you can go over to see Tony Heller's new video that came out today about the bomb fraud. Because back in 1900, there were way more wildfires. It was almost 10 degrees hotter. and they're claiming it's like the hottest ever out there. How do you feel?
No, look, I remember it was hotter in the 80s. I remember 1983, it was hotter.
All right, we love you, Niles. Thanks, Giles. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, mate, and I hope to catch up with you at Gaia 2024 for 2020.
Yeah, let me know if you need help getting out here. And remember, folks, proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance, especially when everything's burning. Be safe.